I feel this entire episode is going to be me overusing the word grim. Hello, my name is Byron and welcome to the Artis Opus channel, where I am trying to complete an army in a horribly tight deadline. This episode is the episode which is going to be responsible for me not meeting my deadline if I don't. So this is more of a learn what not to do episode, I would say. So there are going to be some educational points in here for sure, but yeah, this is the one where we really hit multiple things that pull the project back probably, I think, total by about 8 hours, and when time is tight, 8 hours is really important. So yeah, that's it. Quick note, I just wanted to thank people for how helpful everyone has been for suggestions and stuff. We've had suggestions for websites where people can go to kind of manage their own projects, like my Gantt chart that I was doing. It's called Pile of Potential. That was a great one, so thanks very much for sharing that with us. And then also some stuff, like different products that I could be using, or in like the same stuff that I'm using but from a different brand that may be more potent or something like that. It's super useful stuff, and I'm sure it's useful for other people as well. So thank you very much for the interaction that we've been having. I don't know how else to introduce this one. I guess we'll just we'll jump into me screwing up and fixing screw-ups, and please like, comment, subscribe and hit that bell notification. So yeah, that's it. Some of you may recall from, I think it was the last episode, I'm beginning to lose track of time at this point. I think it was the last episode. I spoke about mistakes happening, and I said that bad things would happen, and the little stumbling block we had with making the basis was definitely one of the smaller of the ones that we would have. So the thing that's happened now isn't a mistake, it's just pretty unfortunate though. The demonette models that I was going to be using for my summoning pool, I got them out and they haven't been DC aligned to the standard that I normally do. I got these secondhand, so it's a risk. So basically, I've been scraping those a fair bit, and I'm going to have to strip them, I believe, as well, which is just some more time delays that we really don't need. So we are on the Tuesday now afternoon, had a busy Monday of work, so that I really didn't get too much done yesterday, apart from the wee hours of the morning. So yeah, I'm going to have to strip them, basically, TLDR. I also have my old demonettes, which I assembled back in the day, so not quite as well as I would assemble them now, but they should be DC aligned and sanded more. So I am going to literally dust them off first, because I got 10 years worth of dust on them, and then I'm going to throw those into the pile for stripping as well. And that's what we're going to do. I know this may all seem a little bit crazy that I'm not yet putting paint on models, but I'm going to be doing these guys in a one batch. So if I've got everything prepped, I will paint everything's feet, hands, eyes, hair, maybe disregarding the characters, but everything else I will do, all of their stages simultaneously. That's the only way that we're going to manage to make this work in the 4 days that we have left, is what it is. Isn't great. Bit annoying really, but I should have checked things more thoroughly rather than just assuming that they were okay. It's the seal lines like at the back of the legs and stuff like that, and maybe it wouldn't be an issue, but I'm going to use washes on these, and a wash loves a seal line to really highlight perfectly. On the plus side, on the recommendation from a couple of people, including Caleb from CK Studios and Dan Osborne off the Instagrams, I picked up a couple of inks. If you guys are into the style of painting that I end up using these for, hopefully, do please check out Caleb below. I will link him. He's one of our signature artists, super talented, and Dan Osborne does some amazing stuff as well. They both bash out a lot of kind of high quality 40k like tip top display army level stuff on the regs, so they're definitely worth checking out, and I'm hoping to use their like kind of methods hacked up a bit and made it as efficient as possible as a good way to tint my metallic. So I've grabbed some inks. I didn't record it because it was raining. Thank God, rain. It's actually not too hot now, which is at least a blessing. So yeah, picked up some cool things, and we'll be trying them out pretty soon. So to give you an idea on these demonettes, it's just points like the thighs, where I've scraped them off, and then I've gone in with the sanding paper to make sure they're smooth. A couple of points on the hair and shoulders, the obvious places where you can get them, but the sneaky ones on these guys, if I can find an example. It's like inside back thigh is a nightmare. So yeah, these will get stripped and we'll rock on with that. Here we go, so they are soaking. Yeah, my bonsai tree's there for some reason, don't know. And yeah, let's jump in. I feel this entire episode is going to be me overusing the word grim. So we have stripped for 2 hours and it was boring as all hell. But we have our models in a usable state. Some of them have got issues with access points. This is a good example here. Like you just can't get anything in that bit there. I'm just gonna have to make my peace with that. I'm gonna do a final pass for any seal lines that have been missed. Gonna particularly be looking out for jaw lines like this one. Gonna pop on any arms that have fallen off or heads that have fallen off as well. We've had a few bits coming off, but aside from that, things are looking pretty good. So not perfect, but all right. And I don't think this cost me net any more time than it would have to scrape and build all of these, because with the contrast paint on, they kind of highlighted their points. And these are just my summoning pools. So if the next batch, the fancy batch of whoops, Ronan's gonna have to bleep that one too. If the next batch are the fancy batch, then that's fine with me, because you know these are just a summoning pool currently, and I should probably have some pretty ones if I start with them on the table in any of my armies. So we will do repairs and then we can rock on. I've already got some stuff that I started priming. At that point, we're going to prime the entire army apart from the keeper, and then we're going to have to slog on and get maybe the majority of the base coating done today, I think, or tonight. So yeah, anyway, that was grim as hell and boring as hell. So everything will be more enjoyable than that from this point onwards. And if it isn't, then I'll be devastated. Just to cheer myself up about the state of things, these are the purchases that I made earlier. I got Burnt Umber, Taylor and Rowney, and I got Purple Lake, I think it's called, Purple Lake, also Taylor and Rowney, and then I grabbed Yellow Orange Azo. Azo, I don't know what that name means, but I got this one as well. And why I have those will become apparent soon, but I think that is a kind of cool combo to have access to. Already tried out some purpley stuff on this scenery piece, which in kind of like white gold, which is looking very appropriately Slaneshi. This face worked really well. They're my nice things. I won't get to use them for a bit, but I will spend all the time that I'm doing this boring stuff thinking about exactly how I'm going to be using them on the final army. Because these need to dry as well, I'm going to pop them all onto temporary painting bases, do their repairs, do their surgeries, and then we should be ready for priming. Just pre-priming, I have 3 very old, very dusty demonettes from one of my previous armies. I'll show just how dusty. Look at that. Grim, that's like 8 years of car park dust from being in the front cabinet of a gaming centre. So they will be dusted down extremely thoroughly. If I were to leave this on, this would really screw things up. And I'm going to airbrush prime these black, not spray can prime these, because they don't need any more. I don't want to obscure their detail, basically. So a very thorough dusting. I might even get the airbrush out and blast them with that, just to catch any last bits this can't reach. I did miss seal lines. Bloody hell. Tricky models for it, I guess. Now, just for priming, in case anyone doesn't do this type of thing, might be useful just to make sure that I can hold everything in the same go to attempt to speed up times, but still not have models obscuring each other or stuff like that. I'm going to do them in a one batch, but the models will be staggered, and I'll spray from 4 sides at a couple of angles just to make sure I get them from north, east, south and west. and then I will quickly zip over them with the airbrush afterwards. We are all primed and all the gaps have been filled. I wonder if people thought that was, I don't know, do you guys spend that long making sure that your undercoat is perfect? I generally do. What you should be able to see going through this video is that I will probably be taking more time towards the beginning than people would think or would do in general, and then less type at the end to, I'm not going to be picking up, first place best painting awards with this army, but I should imagine it will look pretty solid, even in a very small amount of time. It'll be cool. I think maybe people would expect to see less time at the beginning and more time at the end, but I am going to put a lot of work into making sure that my following stages can be done using texture perfectly, really nicely. So and with some efficiency hacks and stuff like that, I should get quite a lot out of the tools I'm using and the techniques I'm using, but it needs to go on as close to a perfect foundation as possible, which is why we're doing all this. So yeah, that's it basically. We are, so this will be added. We had our basing timer that we worked out at 200 minutes, and that's now going to be the army timer. So let's get cracking. I'm going to put down a quick pre-shade on every single one of these models. I expect that'll probably take about 30 minutes. So yeah, let's see. So a load of pre-shading has been put down. At the point at which we're at, I think it's probably time for me to grab a demonet and quickly do a rough test of approximately what I think is going to work for it. So I'm just going to grab some colors and put something down extremely roughly. I have this idea that I can maybe stipple some texture on them prior to doing kind of some fleshy colors with the airbrush. I don't know if that'll work, so now seems like the time to give it a quick try. Quite hard to do on a tiny scale. I'm sure it'll be more effective on the keepers, but yeah, I'll give it a go here and see if it's a thing or not, basically. Oh, this is a strong color. I'm using wine red from AK here. It's potent. Just looks pretty shaded, really. I feel like I've wasted my time a bit. First time using this, I am in no doubt it's going to be nuts. So what do we even want in this mix? I want a gloopy medium, but I have Lamy medium, so we'll do 2 Lamy and 1 glaze, and then I'll put some next to it. It doesn't seem too crazy, actually. It's helpful. It's bright. All right, well, screw it. Let's just go. We are missing. There's not much of the peach orange element going on currently. Whoa. Okay, we need something to counter that. That is just far too much. I need to put flesh color down. Fleshy peachy from above. I will get all of it just to see how it is on the pinky areas. Yeah, she's looking a bit a bit crazy. So yeah, we'll carry on experimenting until we've worked it out. I will cover all of her just in case there's anything to learn. If there is anything to learn, it's that the kind of the deep purpley transition bits actually look quite nice. Don't know what that means for our paint job yet, but that's where we're getting the kind of cool orange on the go. Yeah, so definitely a solid, complete and utter failure. That's the type of area where I want that dapple stipple to appear. We will make it work. We've done some very unsubtle blotching, which I will show you in a second. And for now, we're going to try using Towelite Ochre. I'm picking something that's got worse coverage consciously here. So this is a layer paint, it's not a base paint. It shouldn't have crazy pigment count or, obscure everything that I've done. And when I said I wasn't subtle, I mean I wasn't subtle. I'm aware that looks like she's been in a bloodbath, but let's see how much we can keep. Maybe I want a tiny amount of glazed medium in there. Had some really obvious stuff going on her shoulders. Let's see how this turns out. I feel like if I put that orange over this, it's going to look nuts. Maybe with a little magenta. Do some experimenting. Experiments in experiments. Use a tiny amount. My God, is that strong? Dilate this even further. Some lamy medium. Okay, that's more like it. It's still a pretty crazy color. I guess we will have to see how she looks with some other details blocked in, but that might be it for tonight. I'm gonna do a little bit more experimenting off camera and just see if there's anything I can work out. And hopefully tomorrow we will have settled on a scheme. So what I've just done is I have quickly repeated my test model to make sure that I do indeed know which one of the 5 methods from the second batch of test models I'm going to be using for this. I know that sounds a bit over the top. It's really easy to mix them up, especially when you've done all of them back to back and you've taken a bit of this wash and a bit of that wash. I made one mistake on it with the wash, but I've pinpointed that, so now I know exactly what I'm doing, hopefully, fingers crossed. And we're just going to rock on. This is going to be a bit of an onslaught. So we've got a nice cool evening, which is great. So we're just going to knuckle down and smash it and see how much we can do in, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, basically until I fall asleep. Tried out something slightly different last night. I've been finding it hard to start. I know that sounds like a really simple thing, but so what I've done is, rather than completely finishing my last task, I left 60 minutes, and they've only had their feet sprayed, whereas they need their tails and their hands for this stage. I've still got a couple more stages of airbrushing to go. And that means that it's really obvious what I have to do when I start. So I fill up the airbrush with a tiny amount of the previous step, rock on, do that for 6 people, and then I'm kind of into the flow of things without me, having to figure out or invent a new process. I think it may be a really good idea. So I'm going to be doing it for the rest of the project, and hopefully it does make a difference with momentum. Well, not momentum, just starting, which is obviously far more important than any momentum. So helps build up the momentum at least. Yeah, that's it. I started putting down some of the base coat color on the Vanguard. I just don't think it's necessary given the amount of metal that these guys have. So 3 of those have been done. The other 3 aren't going to be done. I haven't done the steeds for the Hellstriders yet, but I think doing stuff in like a 50 batch or whatever of infantry is enough as it is. So yeah, we're just going to rock on with those 6 and then slam into the next 2 stages. Then we've got dry brushing, and then we've got washing, and then we've got quite a lot of fairly depressing detailing. But at that point, they should be looking pretty good. The moment their feet are done, I can stick them on the bases. I'm saving that up. That'll give me a load of momentum, and it's obviously something that I have to do anyway. So yeah, that's where we're at. So to take you guys through why I'm approaching things the way that I am. These guys have been built up with brown from below. That's mostly been obscured at this point. They've then had 2 layers of highlighting from above with a Slanesh grey mix, and then I've added some ivory into it. Largely obscured the first one. That's my bad, but in particular situations, it's there basically. The second layer was to add more attention to the thighs. And I've sprayed the claws from outside in with a dark mix. I'm going to be doing 2 stages on the claws. They're really important for the overall effect. 2 more additional stages, sorry, for the overall effect. I've got a very forgiving purple mix here. Let me show you how it is on palette. There we go. And now most importantly, the way that it behaves here, this is my transition mix. So I didn't have to do the outside bit too delicately. And then this one, I can mask with fingers if needed.
That's there to add a nice, interesting layer of purple that I can spray all over the feet if I want. But when they get up the calves, up the biceps, and it'll give me just a little additional. This is the transition that I think is important for the overall effect. Let's pick this lady, get her legs. So once I've done that on these, which I haven't done perfectly there, I've got a bit of splattering, it'll add a real point of interest where it goes from super light and bright to this. Then I'm going to dry brush over these lumpy bumpy bits. That will make a difference as well. And I'm going to hit the very edge of the extremities with a black purple mix. And that'll just, really push that kind of fade from outside and in. Quite a lot of steps, but I am working on everything in one batch. Not the Vanguard, because they're going to be dark and a bit more evil and very much more metallic. But yeah, this is a big old batch I've got over here to the left of the camera. In here, we've got our super dark mix. There we go, so that'll be going on the end of claws. That's got quite a lot of Abaddon black in it, as normal used, because it's quite forgiving as far as black goes. It's not like turbo strong at all in terms of coverage. I'm using this amazingly high budget jig here so I can slip things under the arms of demonettes, whatever their shape, and avoid overspray onto thighs. It gets in the way a bit, but it saves more time than it costs. There's probably better solutions, but this is fine. And yeah, we are batching it out as fast as possible. That should hopefully be it for the airbrushing. My fingers are that color. If people wonder why I don't wear gloves, it's because I hate gloves. Also, me getting up periodically to wash my hands, make sure that I stretch my back, which is important. Otherwise, I'd be sat in the same place for 6 hours rather than 1 hour 6 times, which is definitely a thing for your well-being. So all the airbrushing stages are down and done, I believe. Not perfectly, but all right. And the next stage is the dry brushing, which not only gives my poor right hand a break because it's been in airbrush shape for a long time, but that should go some way to mitigating any of the issues. We'll pull attention to the raised areas. We'll buff and smooth out areas like those thighs there, for example, where it's a bit speckly, and that should make a really big difference to the overall appearance. Then it's the wash stage, then we'll leave those to dry while we do some other stuff. Don't know what that plan is yet. Probably Vanguard, I guess. Maybe keep a time. I'm in the middle of the highlighting, dry brushing slog. I thought I would show you, take a moment to show you what I'm doing, and then also explain why I'm approaching it in the way that I am. So let's grab a Hell Strider. I'm going to concentrate on his arm for the purpose of this. It will illustrate it pretty nicely though. The two colours we've got here are Slanesh Grey, and then we've got Ivory, bright ivory specifically from Monument. So with the Slanesh Grey, do bear in mind that my palette is covered in purple overspray, so by mixing it on this palette, I'm mixing in a bit of purple, which helps homogenize things. So initial dry brush is pretty subtle actually, doing that all over the areas that are a little bit purple. We're just hitting anywhere fleshy basically. This is why, so if I hadn't got rid of seal lines, I would literally be highlighting my own mistakes using these techniques. So not very forgiving in that sense, and that's why our assembly had to be on point. Grab a little bit of ivory, pop it into the mix. So as ever, we're careful with how much is on the brush, we're careful with the pressure, and then it should be pretty hard to make a mistake. This is going to show as a bit chalky on camera. The light bounces off the white extremely adeptly. Do hold in mind that we are going to be washing this though with the purple, so all of those areas will get knocked back, and because we've got Slanesh Grey in there, we do have a small amount of purple introduced to the mix as it is. So once that's done, then we'll wash the entire thing. The steeds, same approach. The only difference is on the upper sections, I am going to white and I am adding white, and that'll make the most of all of their crazy lumps and bumps. So at this point, we may as well try out a bit of a wash. So I think I have the recipe down for the wash. Let's put that to the test now, I guess. 1, 2 magentas. 1, 2, 2 glaze mediums. I'm in medium. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are little drops in comparison, so they are probably equal to 1 each. Obviously there we've got a colour which is just, absolutely nuts. We really need to knock that back. 1 big old scoop of Xeris purple. So we have our mix, and then the dilution is up to us. So I think we're probably going to need a fair bit more than that, but we can test it somewhere where it's not going to be catastrophic if it goes wrong. Maybe that xeris is a bit too evident there. Probably half the amount of that would have been okay, but hopefully, as you can see, on the sections that are meant to be a deep purple, it's doing a pretty solid job of making the most of the dry brush texture that we have there. And then those airbrush fades that we have underneath that should give us, you know, multiple layers of detail. The idea would be that for the rest of it, I can have one of them that's slightly off-colored if needs be. Have a couple of points on my palette, so I'll have a much softer mix. Then you can just fade them into each other. Wet blend it, it'll take ages to dry due to the amount of medium in it, and you shouldn't get any nasty tidal stains because you don't have any water introduced. And that's basically it. So you wash the entire thing, go backwards and forwards between your strong mix and your weaker mix in accordance to where you are on the mini. And then that dry brushing is doing, you know, a ridiculous amount of work there in terms of pulling out on the detail, and it doubles down with our wash. Our wash pulls in the recesses. The dry brushing obviously is attracted to the raised areas. So out of, you know, 2 steps we end up with, or well, 3 steps if you include the 2 steps of dry brushing, you end up with like however many layers of depth or detail or nuance to your shading, and it's a really, really efficient way to get stuff down. Unforgiving on badly assembled models, seal lines, bad dry brushing, you know, whatever it is. So on the few of these where I've got my dry brushing a bit skew with, I will be punished for that. And that is just that's just part of using it as a technique. If you don't want to get caught out by that, then just don't rush as much as I am. Take your time a bit more, and you can get some super solid end results. I have realised that I definitely didn't introduce enough mid-tone on the dark parts of these models, so I'm hitting them with a quick Slanesh grey dry brush. Close. Got there. Getting very tired at this point, and I'm using it on the darker areas just to reintroduce that before I do the all-over wash on them. Hopefully it is useful and works. Final aim is for something a little like this. The white is really being thrown up. Can't wait to get some pictures of these on a proper gaming table. They should make a lot more sense in that environment. Under high quality light, they're probably going to look a bit garish, but trust me, these on a table on their bases it should be knocked back significantly, especially when they're repeated and you're looking at them from 3 feet away. So to some degree, 1 foot away scrutiny under perfect light is just off the table as far as you know, what these are to be judged in. They're to be judged like that, which they should do pretty strikingly. We are still going. I am desperately searching for any type of positive like feedback loop that I can get as soon as possible here. So what I'm going to do is try and get the Hellstriders finished as soon as possible. I'm going to work out ways to get down their metallic. It's basically white gold armor. I think it's like 1 part retributed to 3 parts of the normal from Vallejo, just the Game Air Silver, which is of course very strong, but I only want a hint of the gold going in there. I'm going to airbrush their feet because I can get away with that. We've done the saddle. They're looking pretty solid. It's quite a nice scheme on them, I think. And yeah, we'll just get as much of that down as possible with the airbrush without any risk of overspray to models. So I'll part this here and I'll take extra care, and I might even just have to stop at certain points and complete with a brush because having this splatter would be catastrophic at this point. So we definitely don't want that to happen. After a lot of effort, we are getting some sign of completed looking stuff, or, you know, acceptable looking stuff at least. I'm just in the process of using a wash to tie in the basing underfoot rock details that these guys have with their bases, otherwise they'll stand out awfully. Really won't work. But yeah, the moment they're on their bases, that is a super solid color combo. The pink versus the jade looks really nice, and with the off gold as well on there, it's looking pretty tasty. I haven't decided yet whether I like the dark or the light back bits, so I'm just going to leave them as is, light, because that's less effort currently, and I can always change it at a later date. So yeah, going to get all these guys kind of harmonized with their bases appropriately, then we will see how they look with some riders on once the riders have had a wash on their armor, which obviously just looks trash currently. Looks absolutely awful. Let's fix it. I actually saved this one up when I was doing the other bases to show how much of a difference the dry brushing stage makes. Now what this allows is for some kind of universal shading principles to go over there, which strictly speaking probably, you know, technically wouldn't be there on marble, but I think the variation is super helpful to any areas of the base that haven't worked, and you can drag against them, you know, whatever direction is required to pick up on particular edges. Up to you how far you want to go, or you can just buff the entire thing with a circular motion, then you'll get the same coverage on anything. I quite like dragging against the edges and, you know, picking them out to grab attention for them. Let's grab a baby base. This one's a bit darker. There we go, makes such a difference so fast. All right, last video before I go and get a tiny amount of sleep. Vanguard, I've had several stages done on them. It's a gold dry brush, transitioning through to a silver one over a purple base, and then a couple of washes with just a generic purpley mix. And we've got slightly more gold riders. They haven't been washed yet, but they will be done soon. These guys should look amazing once they're on bases. They got a load of presents and they got a load of shiny stuff, so that'd be great. So yeah, we are looking like tomorrow's final push will basically involve me deciding what degree, like she's on a disco ball, what degree I can get the summoning pool to in terms of quality, and then you know, actually then prior to that, just characters. It's about Sigvald, the Keeper, and the Contorted Epitome. Anyway, that's where we've got up to. This required far more than burning midnight oil. I'm not going to tell you what time it is, but it's not dark anymore. Okay, that's enough for now. Let's see what the final day of painting brings. This is the look of someone who painted until 6:30 and then just got woken up by an alarm going off in the building next door.